Hi guys, my name is Shannon Green and welcome to Toxic Crime Tuesdays. So if you're new to my channel, like I said, my name is Shannon and welcome to the fam. So every single week, particularly on a Tuesday, I speak about a true crime case that I personally feel pretty passionate about, one that kind of touches me in a way, and this week's episode is no exception. This is a case that I've known about for a while, and I've just not really wanted to do it because it's quite well known, but it's not well known enough. It should be spoken about a lot more, because as much as this case has been deemed as an accident, there are so many circumstances surrounding this case that are suspicious and could potentially be linked to foul play. So this episode is just hella sketchy. A 21-year-old girl who had such an amazing life ahead of her went to a festival named Wakefest, and that was the last time she was ever seen. A mother and a father lost their little girl forever. You know, if you've been following me for a while, if you've been one of my subscribers from the beginning, you will know that I'm very opinionated. I can't remain neutral. I try my best to. There are certain cases that I do. I try to just sort of be on the fence and let you guys kind of come to your own conclusion. But when it's one that really does hit home for me, and when it's one that I've really invested myself into, which I have with this case, because it wasn't that long ago, I've been able to go onto the parents' Facebooks and, you know, seeing how heartbroken they are and seeing the posts that they put about losing their daughter and how hard they're fighting to get justice for their daughter absolutely breaks my heart. And I've got so emotionally invested in this case, so I'm not going to be able to remain neutral. I am going to give my opinion. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. But what I will do is pretty much the same as what I did with the Dali Routier case. I will just go through everything that happened, and I'll give you like the background, the main event, the investigation, all that jazz. And then towards the end, I'll give you the evidence part, all of the kind of evidence that conflicts with what is actually said that happened by the police. So just before I dive in, I just want to say that if, like me, you are a desktop detective and you are really interested in true crime, then I suggest that you click the subscribe button, because I'm here every single week. And I also suggest that you turn your notifications on as well, because as much as like I do upload every Tuesday, I might throw in just a cheeky little extra one just to keep you guys on your toes. So yeah, make sure you turn on your notifications. So that's it for the intro, and let's dive in. So if you haven't already guessed by my cryptic intro and the title of this case as well, this week's episode is about Lauren Agee. Lauren Taylor Agee was born on August the 19th, 1993 in, probably not going to get this right, Ballou in Mississippi. She was born to Sherry Smith and Brian Agee. Lauren had 3 siblings, Alison, Joshua and Jordan. So Lauren's parents split up. I think they split up quite amicably. I don't think it was, from what I know, I don't think it was an overly turbulent relationship. I think they just like what a lot of couples do, they just drifted. They just no longer had feelings for each other and they just decided to be apart. And I'm sure like any kind of divorce, it always takes its toll on children anyway, but I don't think it had a devastating effect on Lauren, because she did still maintain a really positive relationship with both of her parents. They were both very active participants in her life. Like, she lived with her mother, and Lauren's mother then went on to marry a man named Michael Smith. She had a very good relationship with him as well, and she regularly visited her father Brian. So the two parents co-parented very well, and they tried to do everything they could to bring up all of the kids well and to maintain some kind of positivity in a negative situation. So Lauren was described as an outgoing and vivacious person. She was one of those kind of people that, you know, she'd just walk into the room and she'd just light up the room with her lovely smile. She was beautiful. She was so chatty. She was outgoing. Everyone just wanted to be her friend. She was just so loud, but not in like an obnoxious, arrogant way. She was just chatty and talkative and so confident, and it just oozed out of her, and everyone just wanted to talk to her. She was very intelligent, and she was just one of those people. She was just a great person to be around. Sherry, Lauren's mother, describes her as full of sugar and a little bit of spice. She lit up every room she entered with her sweet spirit, infectious energy, enchanting smile and disarming dimples. Simply put, she was beautiful and hilarious. She loved making those around her laugh and sing and dance, and then laugh some more with her bubbly personality and hysterically quick wit. I just think that's such a lovely way to describe someone. Lauren's friends also described her as a person with a huge heart. She was a humanitarian. She just loved people. She would do anything for anyone. And that really shone through. Her friends could see that, and her friends just loved her for that. And they all said that Lauren would just like make anyone her bestie. She was your best friend even if she wasn't your best friend. You would chat to her for a couple of minutes and you would feel like you'd known the girl your entire life. She was just that kind of person. She was the person you could always count on to have your back, and she never hesitated for a moment to step in for the underdog when need be. Lauren followed her dreams, but not always the rules. I don't think she was one of these girls that crossed boundaries. I think she pushed boundaries. Like any teenage girl, we all push boundaries. Like anyone, whether you're a guy or a girl, we all push boundaries sometimes. But I don't think Lauren ever really crossed the line. I think overall she was really well behaved and very respectful of her parents. I think sometimes she just pushed boundaries, and we all do at some point, don't we? She was spontaneous, she was full of life and often coloured outside of the lines. Music and dancing were her ultimate passion. On July the 25th, 2015, Lauren had planned to attend a festival. It was like a water sports based festival, which was called Wakefest, in DeKalb County in Tennessee. She was planning on going with her friend Hannah Palmer. Now, Sherry, Lauren's mother, was not a fan of Hannah Palmer whatsoever. I think Hannah was just one of those girls that would just drop you the second she got a new boyfriend, which I think everyone's had that kind of friend. No one needs that kind of friend. We've all had a friend like that, you know, the second they break up with their boyfriend, they're there, they're messaging you, they want to hang out all the time. And then they get a new one and it's like, bye, and they're just not interested anymore. I think everyone must have had a friend like that at some point in their life. And I think it always speaks volumes as well if your mother doesn't like one of your friends. I think there's always a good reason for it, generally. Because there are some parents that just don't like any friends that their child has. But my mum was always like, she was always very liberal and very open-minded, and she likes and liked pretty much most of my friends. Yeah, there was one particular friend that she didn't like, and she was totally within her rights to not like that person. The same with boyfriends as well. She always kept an open mind, but there was one particular boyfriend that she didn't like, and she was well within her rights because he ended up being an absolute arsehole. So I think mums just know. I think they just have some weird kind of like voodoo sixth sense kind of thing, and they just know when someone's a bad egg. And I think Sherry was exactly the same. She just didn't like how flaky Hannah was. The fact that she would just pick Lauren up and put her back down again anytime a new boy walked by. So yeah, I wouldn't really like that kind of friend for my kid either, so I don't really blame her. So she wasn't, as you can imagine, she wasn't really thrilled when she heard that Lauren was going to be driving 5.5 hours away to a water sports based festival where you'd be partaking in these activities and also drinking. That in itself is just so dangerous. And she was also going to be attending with a girl that was essentially a bad influence on her. So overall, I don't think Sherry was particularly happy about this at all. However, Lauren, she was 21. There's not so much you can really do, you know. You, as well, obviously I'm not a parent of a 21-year-old, but oh God, I don't, well, obviously that's going to happen, but I don't want it to happen. But, you know, when you're a parent of a 21-year-old, it's like, you know, you want to be honest, you want to voice your opinion, voice your concerns, but also you need to pull the reins back a bit as well. You can't really do much because essentially she is an adult. If she wanted to attend that festival, she could. So Sherry I think she just kind of voiced her concerns. She did have just like a gut feeling that something bad was going to happen. I don't think Sherry, obviously she wasn't psychic, she didn't know the extent of it, she didn't know exactly what was going to happen, because I think if she did, Sherry would not have let her daughter attend. She just had a bad feeling, but obviously you can't not let your kid go out and live their life just based on a bad feeling. So Sherry just kind of pushed those feelings to the side and she tried to be happy and excited for her daughter. That morning, Hannah come and picked Lauren up. I'm presuming pretty early because they had a 5.5 hour drive ahead of them from Mississippi to Tennessee. So just as Lauren was about to leave with Hannah waiting in the car, Sherry gave her daughter an enormous hug, but then just as like Lauren started to leave, I think that bad feeling kind of overpowered Sherry and she was like, no, come back for another hug. And she squeezed her just that once more. And little did Sherry know that that was going to be the last time she ever saw her daughter. So Lauren gets into the car with her friend Hannah and they drive just them two to Tennessee to attend Wakefest. During this time, Lauren is under the impression it's just going to be them two. They're just going to have like a girls' weekend away at a festival. But once they got to the festival, Lauren and Hannah were greeted by Hannah's new boyfriend, Aaron Lilly, and his friend, Chris Stout. Now, Lauren had never met Chris before, and I don't actually think Hannah had ever met him previously either. But I think Hannah and Aaron, their kind of idea was so that they could get some alone time, they could bring a friend along for Lauren. But Lauren was not very happy with this arrangement. Lauren had a boyfriend who I'm sure wouldn't be very happy with her basically wingmanning her friend with a guy that she doesn't even know. But I think Lauren just wanted to push aside her discomfort. She was a very positive person. I think she liked to see the best in any situation. And I think she just thought, hey, we're at a festival, let's just enjoy it. So that's what they did. The four engaged in water sports activities. They jumped off cliffs, they drank all day, and they just generally had a good time. So during the day, Lauren was under the impression that they were going to be staying on site in a cabin. However, at some point during the day, Lauren learns that they aren't going to be staying in a cabin. In fact, they will be staying off-site on a cliffside, just over the water from the actual site. And Hannah and Aaron were going to be staying in a tent, whilst Lauren and Chris were expected to stay in a hammock that literally went from one side of the cliff to the other. So they were up 90 feet above the water, which is just fucking terrifying. Like, if a bit of that rope fucking snapped, that'd be it, they'd be in the water. And that would be a horrific way to wake up. And this was the kind of area, because it was on top of a cliff and it was over the water from the actual where the event was taking place, they needed to get a canoe over to that cliffside and then pretty much climb up a big bit of rope up the hill to get to like their destination, to where they were staying, which is just absolutely crazy. I don't know why anyone would do that or would want to stay there, and I don't think Lauren was very happy about it either. Throughout the day, once she'd learned where she was staying, she bumped into quite a few of her friends, and they were like staying in a cabin, and she kept begging one of her friends named Cassie if she could stay with them, but there was just no room. And I think she was really uncomfortable with being around Chris, because Hannah and Aaron were pretty much just attached to each other the whole time. So Lauren was like left basically babysitting Chris, which she did not want to do. So she kind of just tried to hang out with her other friends, and all of them were just in a bar just drinking until about 2 in the morning, and then they all decided to go back to where they were staying. So obviously they got in a canoe and then had to fucking climb up this big hill, which I don't know how you do that drunk. I don't know how you do that sober. I watched actually some footage of some news footage of people of like news reporters going to the area and investigating the area and like investigating how you got up there, and none of them could do it, and it just looked so difficult, and I don't know why you would do that, especially if you was drunk. So they got up there, they went back to where they were staying, and they carried on drinking, and then I think about 3 AM is when Lauren and Chris went into their hammock, and Aaron and Hannah went into their tent, and they all went to sleep. And then in the morning, I don't know, I'm guessing around like 9 in the morning, 3 of them woke up and they learnt that Lauren was not there. However, Lauren's shoes were there, her clothes, her phone, everything she would have needed to have just gone off was still there, but Lauren was not. So the 3 of them just kind of thought, oh, I bet she's just gone off, she's gone back to the bar to have a few drinks, or she's gone to get something to eat. So they kind of just pushed it to the side and like carried on with their day. During this time, Sherry was getting increasingly worried because she texted her daughter about 21 times. She rang her, she texted her, and she got no response. So she was kind of freaking out at this point. I think she kind of thought, oh, she's just probably having a good time, but I think she just had that motherly instinct, and just knew that something was up, something had happened. So just a few hours later, obviously no one really knew that Lauren was missing. Her 3 friends weren't really concerned that she was nowhere to be seen. She just kind of fell off the face of the earth. 2 people that were fishing on a boat nearby the area, they discovered what looked to be pink shorts in the water, and as they got closer they noticed it was a body. So once they noticed it was a body, they called authorities straight away, and there was actually a man named Chris Yarchuk who was actually on the site. He was a police detective from a different county, but he was working as security, and he actually sort of knew Lauren from the night before. He got chatting to her a little bit, and so he kind of like knew her, knew what she looked like. And then he come by to have a look and see if it was a body. And as he got in the boat to go over with the 2 people that were fishing, that's when they noticed a canoe was coming their way. And the canoe was coming from the location of the body. And the 2 people that were in the canoe was Aaron and Chris. And as they were coming over, Chris Yarchuk, the police detective, he just sort of looked at them to be like, what are you doing? And they were like, oh, we think that's our friend over there. So Chris immediately thought that was strange. No one knew that Lauren was dead at this point. He didn't even know that it was Lauren. He just knew that there was potentially a body in the water. So he goes over to investigate. He sees that it's Lauren, but it's outside of his jurisdiction, so there wasn't really much he could do. So he had to wait for authorities within the jurisdiction to come and thoroughly investigate. But before they do, Chris kind of doesn't obviously touch the body or anything, but he notices a few things. He notices that there is some blunt force trauma on the back of Lauren's head. There is quite a few bruises and markings on her shoulders. And later on, I think when they investigate, he notices that there is like a bite mark on her chest, and there's a triangular shape on Lauren's stomach, looking as though it's some kind of imprint. Chris Yarchuk, upon seeing the bite mark, this can sometimes be an indication of sexual assault. So he immediately said to the investigators once they arrived, you need to do a rape kit. However, they flatly declined and said, no, we don't need to because she has a tampon in. Which I just find to be the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard. I'm sorry, but if you are a rapist and you are going to do that to someone, you're going to take away someone's innocence, you're going to just do that to someone, which is just disgusting, you would not care whether they are on their period or not. It wouldn't matter. I don't think someone that's going to do something that heinous, someone that's going to force themselves upon someone, I don't think they're going to do it, realise that they're on their period and go, oh no, I'll stop, I'll come back when you're off. That doesn't happen. You would just, the person, whoever it is, would just do it anyway. And it was also theorised that maybe the attacker actually put the tampon in just to sort of throw police off the scent, because they would, which they did, think, oh no, she couldn't have been raped, she was on her period. So if that person did do that, then they were right, because that's exactly what the police did. And Lauren's mother actually thought, well, she said that Lauren wasn't on her period anyway during that time. But maybe Lauren was, she may have been due on, and because she was engaging in water sports, she might have put a tampon in just to be safe. So, I don't know, there's a few thoughts about that one. Shortly afterwards, Sherry, Lauren's mum, is contacted by the police. Once the police have investigated and they've realised that it is in fact the body of Lauren, they ring Sherry and they say to her, I'm sorry, your daughter is gone. Which I just think is the worst way to say to someone that their daughter has died. I just think it's just so unsympathetic. It's just insensitive. So as soon as Sherry is informed by the police that her daughter is dead, Sherry instantly thinks that Hannah, Chris and Aaron had something to do with it. She did not think that it was an accident, and that's exactly what the police were saying. The police theorised that Lauren got up in the middle of the night and fell into the water and then drowned. But there's just so many issues with this, because if Lauren got up in the middle of the night, right, if you're laying in a hammock with someone, you're one end, someone else is the other end, if you got up, or someone got up in the hammock with you, you would feel them. Unless you were the world's deepest sleeper and you're basically in a coma, I don't know how you wouldn't wake up, because the hammock would tilt. So how would you not know that someone has got up to leave? And there were only 2 ways to get down, for which both were very, very difficult. And they had their own little area to go to the toilet, which was right on top of the cliff, basically right by the hammock. So why on earth would she have got out of the hammock and then gone all the way down? Like, where would she have gone? Especially in the middle of the night when it was dark, it was probably cold. Like, even if you're not scared of the dark, I'm sure it would have been kind of creepy to go down there on your own. And where would you be going? Especially when there's water 90 feet below. It just, it doesn't make sense. And it didn't make sense to Sherry either. She just couldn't comprehend what the police were telling her. She just knew, she had that feeling that those 3 had something to do with it. There's no way it was just a tragic accident. So Sherry said to the policeman, like, look, you need to look into those 3, please, can you? And the police officer just looked at her and said, well, we've investigated them, we're questioning them at the minute, and it was just a brief questioning, just like, when was the last time you saw Lauren, what happened, blah blah blah, and that was it, and they were all let go. So as you can imagine, Sherry was just not happy with this. And then after they were questioned, they just went on with the festival. They just carried on like nothing had happened, carried on hanging out, drinking, and then they all went home to their normal lives whilst the mother had just lost their daughter. And they just acted like nothing had happened. And one of them, I think it was Chris, he actually put up a picture of like something to do with the festival and put like best weekend ever, which I just think is the most insensitive thing ever. Like, I know he didn't really know Lauren, but it's someone he spent the weekend with, so I just, oh, that's just so disrespectful. And that's also another thing that so many people just think is just weird and definitely indicates that foul play was at hand. So even down to when it was Lauren's funeral, none of them attended, which again is just super sketchy. So the police pretty much like closed the case. They investigated the 3. They felt like it was just an accident. That was it. It was just a simple accident. Lauren just got up in the night, fell and drowned. Even though Lauren was found floating, which again is something else that's really strange, and that's something we're going to get into in the like evidence portion of it. So after Lauren's tragic death, Sherry's mum to this day has just been fighting for justice. She even filed a wrongful lawsuit against the 3. Against Chris and Aaron, it's still ongoing. However, with Hannah, apparently there was just not enough evidence to suggest that there was a wrongful, that she was liable for Lauren's death, so that was denied. And Sherry and Brian and Michael, they are all fighting for justice for Lauren, because they just feel that it wasn't an accident, something happened that night, and they just need those answers and they just need that closure. And there has been some petitions. I'm not sure if there is still one going on. If I find one, I will put it up in my description, because I really do, and I will put it on my social media as well, because I really feel like this family need justice. I personally think that it was foul play, I really do, and I feel like this family just needs the answers. There is so much to this story that suggests that it was foul play and it wasn't an accident, and this family just need that closure. Obviously they are never going to get over the death of Lauren. It's just not going to happen. However, if they just know what happened, they'll be able to get some kind of closure and grieve a little bit better. They'll be able to properly grieve for their daughter without having to constantly wonder what happened, why it happened, and when exactly it happened. So upon the sheriff ruling Lauren's death as an accident and ruling it as drowning. Sherry was not happy with this. She wanted to believe that that's what happened, but she just had a gut feeling. She had an instinct that it was foul play. So Sherry decided to hire her own private investigator named Sheila Wyazik. I don't know if I pronounced that right. So she hired her to look into it some more, and whilst she had done this, she interviewed Chris Yarchuk, who I spoke about before, who was the first on the scene, who was previously a police investigator, and he stated that he wasn't happy with the police's conclusion. Basically, he felt like it was foul play as well. He was not happy that a rape kit wasn't done. He did suspect that all three of them were responsible somehow. Sheila also dug up some pretty damaging reports on Chris and Aaron. Chris had quite a hefty record for DUIs. I think he had 3 DUIs altogether. And Chris also had a couple of DUIs, but he was also previously convicted for domestic violence against his ex-girlfriend Cassie, who I also spoke about. Cassie was also friends with Lauren, and she was actually at Wakefest on the weekend that they were all there. So Cassie didn't come forward initially until she was spoken with by the private investigator and spoken with by Sherry herself as well. And Cassie had some pretty interesting information. She had some pictures of the abuse that she succumbed to by Aaron when they were together. And she didn't come forward with them at first because she didn't think that they were related. However, when she looked into these pictures again, she had a look at them, and then she looked at the photos of Lauren's body, she saw some similarities. Cassie was also bitten by Aaron during one of their domestic rows. There was domestic violence on both parts. They were both convicted. And yeah, she looked at the pictures, and there was a lot of markings on Cassie that are very similar to the markings on Lauren, which again is pretty suspicious. So when the private investigator come forward to the police with this information, they were not interested. Any time that they've been questioned, asked to come forward with certain information, they've been asked to look into more information, they've just declined. They've just stated, no, we're just leaving it at that. It was an accident, move on. But Sherry has just been fighting ever since. So I'm just going to go through with the evidence that conflicts with the police's conclusion. So, like I said, there was a triangular marking found on Lauren's stomach, which looks similar to the edge of the canoe that Aaron and Chris were in. Chris Yarchuk, the police investigator, he actually stated that that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it looked like. He was up close to this canoe. He could see that it looked very similar, and that imprint looked like the imprint on Lauren's stomach looked like the edge of the canoe. It was a triangular shape and did look very similar. So he proposed that Lauren was already dead and then was taken on the canoe, laid face down on the canoe, and then dumped in the water. So again, there's a bite mark on Lauren's chest, which also suggests some kind of sexual assault, and the fact that it's very similar to the bite mark that Cassie had as well, who was Aaron's ex-girlfriend. Aaron also has a history of domestic abuse, and it's also quite weird that the three of them just carried on partying and enjoying their weekend like nothing had happened. I know that if I lost a close friend, there is no way, like at a festival, there is no way I would carry on with that weekend. I would want to go home as soon as possible and be allowed to cry and grieve, and I just wouldn't want to do anything else. I would not be able to be in that mindset of partying. I would just want to go home and cry and mourn my friend. I don't know how the fuck, especially Hannah, who was supposed to be close friends with Lauren, I don't know how she did that and could have carried on with her weekend, which again just shows that they had a lack of empathy for what happened. There's also Chris Yarchuk, who he admitted that the whole situation was very suspicious and definitely indicated some sort of foul play. He was a police detective. He knew his stuff. He had seen similar situations like this, so he knew that this did not look like an accident. And there's also the fact that Lauren was floating, and if she'd drowned, that would have only have been maybe like 10 hours at the most that she had been in that water. And if you drowned in that water for 10 hours, you would be down in the water. You would not be floating. Maybe after a few days, a few weeks, that body would float because of the gases and everything else, which, you know, would make the body float. But within a few hours, there's no way that that body would have been floated. And there was also hardly any water found in Lauren's lungs, which suggests that Lauren was placed in the water when she was already dead. Aaron, Chris and Hannah changed their stories numerous times as well, to other people, to the police, to the news as well. And to Sherry, they had changed their stories so many times. They had said that she had got down to go to the toilet, even though there was a toilet area right by the hammock. They'd said that she had gone to get in a boat with some guy. Then they had said that she tried to leave and they had to take her keys off of her so she couldn't drive home because she was too drunk. They also said that she had had a huge argument with her boyfriend and that she tried to leave again. Yeah, so they changed their story numerous times, which is pretty sketchy. It's like, obviously, if you're going through any kind of trauma, your first story initially may not be completely the same as your story after that, but then I think after that you know the facts, you know, the important stuff doesn't change at all. Maybe some of the small minuscule details, they might be a bit hazy at first, you might forget a couple of like lesser known details, but the main events you don't forget, they stick with you and that doesn't change. So again, that is very strange. So that is it for this case. Let me know what you guys think, if you think it was a genuine accident or if you think that those three had something to do with it. I personally think that they were responsible. I don't actually know if Hannah was responsible. I think the two boys were. I think Hannah may have witnessed it. I definitely think she knew about it, but I don't know if she was physically involved. It's also important to note as well that Sherry had tried contacting the three numerous times as well to find out what had happened. Chris and Aaron just flatly declined. However, one time Sherry did ring Hannah, and Hannah now is still with Aaron and has a baby with him as well. Sherry rang her one day and Hannah seemed a bit more inclined to talk. However, as soon as Aaron walked in and realised who Hannah was talking to, Sherry could hear Aaron saying, "Shut up, don't say a word, just hang up." So she did. So again, weird. So that's it for this week's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Obviously, yeah, it's a really sad one and it's definitely a pretty weird one as well. It's one that's got so many twists and turns. And if you know a lot about this episode and you feel like, well, this case, and you feel like I missed out some parts, then please just let me know. So thank you so much for watching, and I will be back again next week with another episode of Toxic Crime Tuesdays. So as always, thank you so much for watching and thank you for your continued support. Bye guys.